Hello and welcome to Practically. Thank you for joining me. My name is John Stevenson. In this video we're going to have a look at Spacemacs and how to configure it for Git and GitHub. So we can work with local repositories and remote repositories equally well. If we go to the Practically website, practical.li or practically.github.io, then you can see this details of this video in the Practically book. We go to the source code section. Then we can see the details of what we're going to install. So we're going to have the layers installed, which is all fairly straightforward. But we also need to configure Git and specifically configure GitHub itself as well. So we're going to have these three steps we're going to cover in this video. Okay, so if we go and have a look at the Git configuration. So whenever you're using Git, you should use these two commands to set up Git for the first time. Specify your username and email. This means that whenever you do a commit, then you can have all those commits tagged with your identity, and therefore people know who's done the commit and they can talk to you about it as well. So in Spacemacs, if we open up our configuration file, so space fed, and then we go to our layers configuration, and we just need those two layers installed. So we need Git, and I've added this Git variable to show Git in full screen. So this is going to show the Magit Git client in full screen whenever we open up the Git status. And this allows us to easily see all the diff information from that, and makes it very easy for us to select what changes we want to add and stage and so on. And then for GitHub access, then we can have the GitHub layer, and this is using the GitHub API, and it allows us to clone and fork and do a whole range of things that we can do specifically for GitHub. So once these two layers are running, we can reload our configuration file. So space FE capital R will reload it, or you can also restart Emacs as well. It is actually important to restart Emacs if you add anything to your Git config file. So here we've got a Git config file. So those two commands we ran will add my name and my email address for my GitHub account. So that's the results of running these two commands, because these two commands are everything we need for Git itself. So to configure Git for GitHub access, we first need to generate SSH keys. This is not absolutely essential, but it's highly recommended. This will save you entering your password in over and over again. You can simply go in and generate SSH keys if you do not already have them. If you have them from an old account, you can always copy them across. And you just use the SSH keygen command with the type RSA. So it's going to be an RSA key, and then you would specify your email address here. This is going to generate a public-private key pair. And when you press enter, it's going to prompt you to enter a passphrase. This is like a password for the key. You could just type in enter and not have a passphrase, but I always recommend adding a passphrase. It adds a little bit extra security. If somebody did get hold of your private key, then they could do damage with it if it doesn't have a passphrase. You do need to type the passphrase in the first time you use the key, but then you can use an SSH agent or a keyring manager. So the first time I use a key in Ubuntu, a little pop-up appears and asks me if I want to add that passphrase to the keyring, and then it also gives me an option to unlock that keyring every time I log into my Ubuntu account. And so I only ever really need to type the password in once, and then it will just continue to use the key over and over again. And then once that's done, then you go and add that key to your GitHub account. So if you go into GitHub, and if you go into your settings in here, and inside SSH GPG keys, you can go in and just paste in the new key. So you just give it a title so you can remember where the key was coming from. You can just open up your SSH key in Emacs and copy it from there and paste it in. That works pretty well. So I did my SSH keys, and so now I can access remote GitHub repositories on the command line, but I still need to add a personal access token to be able to do the same thing from within inside Spacemacs. I don't know if this is entirely necessary, but I suggest adding this as well. So you can do git config and add your GitHub username. What is definitely required is this git OAuth token. And so we need to generate this. This is a personal access token we can generate from the GitHub website. So creating a personal access token is pretty easy. We're just using settings, developer settings. So if we go to GitHub again and go to our account, go and select settings, and there, rather than the SSH keys, there's a developer settings section. And in personal access tokens, then this is where we can create and also revoke our personal access tokens as well. So we want to generate a new token, give the token a name, and then we need to decide what kind of access this token is going to get. We could give it everything, but then that means if somebody did get the token, then they could pretty much do everything that you can do by the GitHub API. For our particular needs, then all we need to do is just give it access to do things with the repositories and access to do things with the GitHub gists. So this will allow us to push a buffer up to GitHub gists and create a new gist all the way, like straight from within inside Emacs without having to do anything else. And then we just generate the token. We can copy that token there, and we simply just go in and go back and run this command git config global and add it to our GitHub OAuth token. And then when we go and look at our GitHub, config file again, we can see that we've got OAuth token, we've got our user added to that. At this point, we do need to restart Spacemacs in order to pick up all these details. Otherwise, it'll still prompt us for username and password when we try and get things from GitHub. But once you've restarted, then you should be able to go in and access any of the remote repositories on GitHub accounts. So if you do space G and then H for GitHub, and we can clone and specifically go and clone on GitHub. And we can just type in a GitHub repository. Let's say we just use it by name. We'd also put in the HTTPS URL if we've got that here. I'm going to put jrocket blog. I've just got one repository here that I can remember the name of. So press enter. Say where we want it to go. And now it's going to clone. You can see it down the bottom. It's cloning. It's contacting the GitHub API. And it's done. It's only a small project this time, so we've done, and it's opened up in Magit status, so we can see the log. We can just type L for the full log, and we can see that we can now go in and access the details of all those commits. Press Q to quit out of that, and we can go in and stage. If we wanted to go in and add some changes, we can stage those, commit those. And do everything we'd normally do with Git and push all those changes up to GitHub when we're done. Okay, that's everything fully configured, so I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much for joining me, and see you next time.